Understanding the Three Jewels of Buddhism, by a lifelong researcher in Buddhist philosophy. In the vast and profound ocean of Buddhist thought, a body of wisdom I have been privileged to navigate for over 4 decades. There stands a single, luminous lighthouse that has guided countless beings across the turbulent waters of existence. This lighthouse is the Triratna, a Sanskrit term meaning the three jewels or the three treasures. These are the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. For millennia, these three jewels have served as the cornerstone of the Buddhist tradition, the very heart of its practice, and the ultimate object of its reverence. To an outside observer, the chanting of the ancient refuge formula, Buddham Saranam Gacchami, Dharmam Saranam Gacchami, Sangham Saranam Gacchami, I go for refuge to the Buddha, I go for refuge to the Dharma, I go for refuge to the Sangha, might seem like a simple act of religious piety. But to a seasoned student of the path, this act represents one of the most profound, rational, and transformative commitments a human being can make. Taking refuge, in this context, is not an act of blind faith or a surrendering of one's will to an external power. It is a conscious, deliberate, and deeply sane act of entrusting oneself to a path of awakening. It is the recognition that our ordinary refuges, money, status, relationships, fleeting pleasures, are inherently unstable and unreliable, and the turning of the heart toward a refuge that is true, stable, and liberating. The three jewels are not separate and distinct idols to be worshipped. They form a single, integrated, and living reality, a complete and coherent system for human flourishing. The Buddha is the supreme physician who has perfectly diagnosed the illness of our suffering. The Dharma is his compassionate prescription, the medicine that cures the disease. And the Sangha is the supportive community of skilled nurses and fellow patients who help us to administer the cure. This article is an in-depth exploration of these three precious jewels. We will delve into the historical and aspirational meaning of the Buddha, unpack the multifaceted nature of the Dharma as both teaching and universal truth, and explore the vital role of the Sangha as our spiritual companions. We will see how these three are inextricably linked and how the act of taking refuge in them is the definitive first step on the path to finding a peace and freedom that is unshakable. This is a journey to the very foundation of the Buddhist world, a journey to understanding the most precious treasures a human heart can hold. Part 1. The first jewel, the Buddha, the guide who has awakened. The first jewel, and the gateway to the other two, is the Buddha. When a practitioner takes refuge in the Buddha, they are taking refuge in a multifaceted ideal, one that encompasses the historical, the universal, and the potential. The historical Buddha, the example of a human being, at the most accessible level. The first jewel refers to the historical figure, Siddhartha Gautama, a prince who lived and taught in ancient India in the 5th century BCE. The story of his life is not a myth to be passively believed, but a powerful archetypal journey that serves as a blueprint for our own potential. He was not a god, a prophet of a god, or a divine being sent from on high. He was a human being, born into a world of privilege, who became profoundly disillusioned with the superficial and fleeting nature of worldly happiness. He saw that all beings, regardless of their status, were subject to the inevitable realities of sickness, old age, and death, the great sufferings of what he called samsara. Moved by a profound compassion, he renounced his palace life and embarked on a relentless 6-year quest to find an end to this suffering. Not just for himself, but for all beings. He studied with the greatest meditation masters of his day. He practiced extreme asceticism, and finally, rejecting all extremes, he sat beneath a Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya with the unshakable resolve not to rise until he had found the truth. On the night of a full moon, he broke through the veils of ignorance, avidya, and awakened. He saw with perfect clarity the nature of his own mind, the causes of suffering, and the path to its complete cessation. It is this event that transformed the man Siddhartha into the Buddha, a title which means the awakened one, or the one who knows. To take refuge in the historical Buddha is to take refuge in this example. It is the recognition that liberation is a human possibility. If he, a man, could awaken, then it proves that awakening is not a distant, superhuman feat, but a potential that lies dormant within our own human nature. He is the ultimate role model, the pioneer who forged the path and showed us that it could be walked. He is the proof of concept, the living embodiment of the path's culmination. We take refuge in his life story as a source of profound inspiration and confidence. The universal Buddha, the principle of awakening. Beyond the historical figure, refuge in the Buddha points to a deeper, more universal principle, the quality of Buddhahood itself. From the Mahayana perspective in particular, Buddha is not just a title for one historical person, but refers to the innate, luminous, and pure nature of consciousness that lies at the heart of every sentient being. This is often referred to as Buddha nature or Tathagatagarbha. From this viewpoint, our ordinary mind, with its confusion, greed, and hatred, is like a sky temporarily obscured by clouds. The clouds are not the nature of the sky. The sky's true nature, vast, clear, and brilliant, is always present, even when it is hidden from view. Similarly, our Buddha nature is our own intrinsic potential for perfect wisdom, prajna, and boundless compassion, karuna. It is not something we have to create or acquire, but something we need to uncover. Taking refuge in the universal Buddha is an act of profound self-trust. It is the affirmation that we too possess this luminous potential. It is a turning away from our habitual self-deprecation and our identification with our own limitations, and a turning toward the highest and best part of ourselves. It is the commitment to waking up, to becoming the Buddha we already, on the deepest level, are. The Buddha as the supreme guide. Combining these two aspects, taking refuge in the Buddha is the act of accepting him as our ultimate guide. We recognize him as the supreme physician who has not only recovered from the illness of suffering himself but has also mastered the science of its cure. We entrust ourselves to his diagnosis, the Four Noble Truths, and his prescription, the Noble Eightfold Path, not out of blind obedience, but because we have a rational confidence in his qualifications. He has walked the path to its end, and out of compassion, he has mapped it for the rest of us. To take refuge in the Buddha is to accept this map and to commit to following it, with him as our trusted and unsurpassable guide. Part 2. The second jewel, the Dharma, the path and the truth itself. The second jewel, the Dharma, Sanskrit, or Dhamma, Pali, is the very heart of the Buddha's legacy. If the Buddha is the guide, the Dharma is the path he revealed. The term is famously multifaceted and can be understood on several levels, all of which are included when one goes for refuge. The Dharma as the teachings of the Buddha. At its most straightforward level, the Dharma is the body of teachings that the Buddha gave during his 45-year ministry. These are preserved in the vast collections of scriptures known as the Sutras, Sanskrit, or Suttas, Pali. This is the raft the Buddha spoke of, the collection of concepts, doctrines, and practical instructions designed to carry us from the shore of suffering to the far shore of liberation. This includes foundational teachings such as the Four Noble Truths, the diagnosis of suffering, its cause and craving, its possible cessation, and the path to that cessation, the Noble Eightfold Path, the practical blueprint for living that encompasses ethics, mental discipline, and wisdom, the three marks of existence, the core insights into the nature of reality as impermanent, anicca, unsatisfactory, dukkha, and devoid of a solid self, anatta, dependent origination, paticcasamuppada, the profound law of causality that explains how all things, including our suffering, arise in a web of interdependence. To take refuge in the Dharma as teachings is to accept this body of wisdom as our primary guide for understanding the world and transforming our minds. It is a commitment to study these teachings, to contemplate them deeply, and most importantly, to put them into practice in our lives. The Dharma as the universal law of reality. On a deeper level, the Dharma is not just what the Buddha taught, it is the timeless, universal truth that he discovered. The Dharma is the very law of nature, the underlying order of the cosmos, the way things truly are. The laws of causality, impermanence, and non-self were not invented by the Buddha. They are fundamental properties of existence that he, through his awakening, perceived with perfect clarity. A helpful analogy is to Newton and the law of gravity. Newton did not invent gravity. He discovered it and then formulated a set of teachings, the laws of motion, to describe it so that others could understand and work with it. Similarly, the Buddha discovered the Dharma, the laws of ethical and psychological cause and effect, and then skillfully articulated it for the benefit of all. To take refuge in the Dharma as universal law is to commit to living in harmony with the way things truly are. It is the recognition that our suffering comes from our friction with reality, from our desire for permanence in an impermanent world, and from our clinging to a solid self where none can be found. Taking refuge in the Dharma is the act of letting go of this struggle. It is the wise and peaceful act of aligning our lives with the truth. The Dharma as the path and the goal. Finally, the Dharma encompasses both the path of practice and the goal of that practice. It is the entire journey of transformation, from the first moment of hearing the teachings to the final realization of nirvana. The path consists of the gradual cultivation of sila, ethical conduct, samadhi, mental concentration, and prajna, wisdom. The goal, the culmination of the path, is the direct, experiential realization of the Dharma in one's own heart. This is called the Dharma of realization. At this point, the Dharma is no longer a set of external teachings, but a living, breathing reality. One does not just understand impermanence, one is the living embodiment of that understanding. To take refuge in the Dharma, then, is a comprehensive commitment. It is a commitment to study the map, the teachings, to trust the laws of nature it describes, the universal truth, and to undertake the journey it outlines, the path of practice, in order to arrive at the final destination, realization. Part 3. The third jewel, the Sangha, the companions on the path. The third jewel, the Sangha, refers to the community of those who are following the path. The Buddha understood that the spiritual journey, while deeply personal, is not one that can be easily undertaken in isolation. We are social creatures, and the company we keep has a profound impact on our minds and hearts. Therefore, he established the Sangha as an essential component of the path, providing the support, guidance, and inspiration necessary to sustain our practice. Like the other jewels, the Sangha can be understood on two primary levels. The Arya Sangha, the community of the awakened, in its highest and most essential meaning. The Sangha refers to the Arya Sangha, or the Noble Sangha. This is the community of all beings, past and present, lay or monastic, who have directly realized the Dharma and have attained some stage of awakening. This includes stream enterers, once returners, non-returners, and arahants, in the Theravada tradition, as well as bodhisattvas of high levels, in the Mahayana tradition. These are the noble ones, who have seen for themselves the truth of the teachings and can confirm that the path is real and that the goal is attainable. They are the living exemplars of the Dharma. They are the ones who have crossed the river and stand on the far shore, encouraging us and showing us that we too can make the journey. To take refuge in the Arya Sangha is to take refuge in the reality of awakening. It is to trust in the lineage of wisdom that has been passed down from the Buddha through an unbroken chain of enlightened masters. It is the confidence that we are not pioneers hacking our way through a trackless jungle, but are walking a well-trodden path with countless exemplars who have gone before us. The conventional Sangha, the community of practitioners. In its more conventional sense, the Sangha refers to the living community of practitioners. Traditionally, this meant the fourfold assembly of monks, bhikkhus, nuns, bhikkhunis, laymen, upasakas, and laywomen, upasikas. In modern times, it has come to mean the broader community of all those who are seriously committed to practicing the path. Whether they are monastic or lay, this community serves several vital functions: support and friendship, kalyana mittata. The Buddha repeatedly emphasized the importance of noble friendship. To have friends on the path who share our values, who understand our struggles, and who can encourage us when we falter is an incalculable gift. The Sangha provides a space where our commitment to practice is seen as normal and laudable, rather than strange or eccentric. Guidance and teaching. The Sangha, particularly its more experienced members and ordained monastics, serves as the living repository of the Dharma. It is through the Sangha that we receive teachings, clarification on difficult points of doctrine, and practical instruction in meditation. A qualified teacher is an essential guide who can help us navigate the subtleties of the path and avoid pitfalls. Inspiration and example. Simply being in the presence of dedicated practitioners can be profoundly inspiring. When we see others living lives of mindfulness, integrity, and compassion, it uplifts our own hearts and strengthens our resolve to do the same. The Sangha serves as a constant and living reminder of what is possible. a field of merit. The Sangha, especially the monastic community which has dedicated its life fully to the practice, is considered a field of merit. By supporting the Sangha through acts of generosity, dana, lay practitioners not only ensure the physical survival of the Dharma but also cultivate the wholesome quality of letting go in their own hearts, creating positive karma that supports their journey. To take refuge in the Sangha is to let go of the arrogant and isolating belief that I can do it all on my own. It is the humble and wise recognition of our interdependence and our need for the support and guidance of our fellow travelers on the path. Part 4. The integrated whole, the interconnectedness of the jewels. It is a mistake to view the 3 jewels as 3 separate items on a checklist. They are 3 facets of a single, indivisible gem. They arise together and are mutually supportive. Without the Buddha, the guide, there would be no knowledge of the Dharma, the path. Without the Dharma, the path, the Buddha would have had nothing to teach, and his awakening would have been a solitary event. Without the Sangha, the companions, the Dharma would not have been preserved and transmitted through the centuries, and the example of the Buddha would have been lost to history. When we take refuge in the Buddha, we are inspired to practice the Dharma. When we practice the Dharma, we begin to embody the qualities of the Buddha and become a worthy member of the Sangha. When we associate with the Sangha, our understanding of the Dharma deepens and our confidence in the Buddha's example is strengthened. Each jewel reflects and contains the other 2. The ancient symbol of the Triratna beautifully illustrates this unity. It is often depicted as a 3-pronged trident, representing the 3 jewels, rising from a lotus flower, representing purity and awakening, which sits within a Dharma wheel, representing the rolling forth of the teachings. The 3 prongs are distinct, yet they rise from a single point, showing their fundamental unity. Part 5. The act of taking refuge, a commitment to awakening. What does it truly mean? In practice, to go for refuge, it is far more than the recitation of a formula. It is an internal orientation of the heart and mind. It is an act of clarity, not faith. It is a recognition, based on careful observation of our own lives, that our usual refuges, wealth, power, pleasure, reputation, are like houses built of straw. They are unreliable and cannot protect us from the winds of change and the reality of suffering. Taking refuge is the sane decision to start building our house on the solid rock of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. It is an act of commitment, not surrender. We are not surrendering our will or our critical intelligence. We are committing ourselves to a path of active self-responsibility. The Buddha cannot grant us enlightenment, he can only show us the path. The Dharma is not a magic spell, it is a set of instructions that we ourselves must put into practice. The Sangha cannot walk the path for us, they can only walk beside us. It is an ongoing practice, not a one-time event, while there is often a formal ceremony to mark one's commitment. The true act of taking refuge happens in every moment that we choose mindfulness over distraction, kindness over anger, and wisdom over confusion. Every time we sit down to meditate, we are taking refuge. Every time we choose a kind word over a harsh one, we are taking refuge. Every time we seek the company of our spiritual friends, we are taking refuge. Taking refuge fundamentally reorients our life. Our values begin to shift. We are less interested in accumulating and more interested in cultivating. We are less concerned with fleeting pleasures and more concerned with lasting peace. Our life gains a central, unifying purpose, the purpose of awakening, for our own benefit and for the benefit of all beings. Conclusion. The true and lasting refuge. The world is an uncertain place. Our lives are a constant flow of pleasant and painful experiences, of gain and loss, of praise and blame. To navigate this unpredictable current without a reliable refuge is to live in a state of perpetual anxiety and insecurity. The 3 jewels of Buddhism, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, are offered as that true and lasting refuge. They are a refuge in the Buddha, the perfect model of our own highest potential, the guide who proves that freedom is possible. They are a refuge in the Dharma, the timeless truth of reality and the clear, practical path that leads to liberation. They are a refuge in the Sangha, the noble community of companions and teachers who support, inspire, and guide us along that path. To understand these 3 jewels is to understand the very structure of the Buddhist path. To take refuge in them is to step onto that path with confidence, clarity, and a joyful heart. It is the most profound act of self-compassion. A turning away from the ephemeral sources of suffering and a turning toward the unshakable peace and boundless wisdom that is our own deepest nature. They are, in the truest sense of the words, the most precious treasures one can ever hope to find.